From Oakland, California, it's Game 2, Western Conference semifinals. Curry.
It's on his hand.
He
left
is
hand.
going right to the locker. That is an early story in this one. Shot clock at 6. Harden will make her move. And a floater inside. It's no good. Got hit in the eye. Harden is down. So Curry is in the locker room. Harden is on all fours.
Here comes Steph Curry back on the floor with those fingers taped.
Curry with that tip hand will drive and dive and get the juice. Fake 3. Curry. Good! All good! Another 3 by Chris Paul. Without Harden, Houston hasn't blinked. They have outscored Golden State 19-14. The drama continues to build. Harden is back on the floor. Here comes Harden with a drive. And 5 by Harden, and Green couldn't knock it away. The other way, Iguodala. Thompson on 5 and hammers one home. Harden good. Harden puts in a triple. Thompson free, straight Iguodala. As plays put in the last 6 points for the Golden State Warriors. Rockets have never led. Warriors have led by 14. 3 by Harden. His eyes are fine, he said. Another 3. 14 of 28 from three-point territory, yet Golden State still by 10. Thompson catches, fires 3. Mooney, 3. Thompson again. Oh! He has a flamethrower!
Putting on a shooting clinic. And how about the reaction from Clay?
Harden again, the drive and the 2.
That's way too easy.
Step back, 3. Good! And it's a 4-point game. Curry, he'll let it go. 3. Harden got a screen in the top and Euro step for 2. Green defends Durant, who puts up a 20-footer.
No one on earth is going to stop that. A love loss between both of these teams.
That's it. The win. 115-109, and the Golden State Warriors go up 2 games tonight.
Once again, very efficient offense from the Warrior starters. Everyone at least 15-plus points in that Hamptons 5 starters for Steve Kerr and Golden State.
Well, James Harden.
Whoa!
I say Jerome in the house.
He's in the house.
I say Jerome in the house. Without a doubt.
Oh, that's your reigning MVP. Woo. Steph Curry, a little bit more subtle, struggling with his shot this series so far, shooting under 40% from the field. The wait is almost over. 4 days since Game 2. Lots of intrigue and anticipation for Game 3 tonight between the Warriors and the Rockets. Welcome to GameTime Live, presented by State Farm. We're here to get you ready for this colossal matchup featuring 2 of the best in the West. Of course, we're going to take a look back at last night's historic infinity game between the Nuggets and the Blazers. That's Sam Mitchell, that's Brendan Haywood, I'm Chris Miles, and we would like to extend a special warm welcome to Ryan McDonough, former Suns Celtics front office member, newest member of our weekend crew, and you get respect, Knuckles, when you join the show, my friend. Great to have you.
I appreciate it, Chris, and I appreciate getting this game as my first assignment. What a game we have in store later tonight.
Hey, Rourke, make sure you bring some donuts for us in the back.
Now I know what I'm doing during the commercial break.
Yeah. Now we'll wait till you get the whole segment's done. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's take a look at your resume. Ryan, of course, won a championship with the Celtics. He's in that organization for a decade. Also, in the front office for the Phoenix Suns. And I know for you, you're happy to see some of your former players from that 2013-2014 team that you won 48 games and was runner-up for Executive of the Year. How exciting is it to see these guys still participating in the postseason and playing well?
It's really exciting, Chris. That was my first year in Phoenix, and it was a magical year for us. Jeff Hornacek was runner-up for Coach of the Year. As you mentioned, I was runner-up for Executive of the Year. More importantly, those players you showed played great for us that year. And if you looked at the preseason win projections and totals that year, I think most of Vegas and people around the league projected us to win between 15 and 20 games. So winning 48 games and being the surprise team in the league was a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see those guys doing so well in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, 2 of those guys we'll get to see tonight in this matchup, in the Western Conference heavyweight rematch we anticipated all season. The challenging Rockets against the ropes, down 2-0 against the 2-time defending champion Golden State Warriors. Let's head out to Houston where we find NBA.com senior writer Sean Powell. Sean, let's get right down to business. It's been 4 days since James Harden played through with those 2 red eyes after getting poked by Draymond Green. What's the latest with the reigning MVP's vision?
Well, I guess his red eye has been upgraded to rose-colored, meaning optimism for the Rockets here. The last time, obviously, they played the Warriors in a playoff game here at Toyota Center. They missed 27 straight three-pointers, and you know what happened after that. James Harden has had great recovery powers. He says it's not going to be an issue. He's ready to go, and so we'll see.
Well, that game 2 started to look like a last man standing, like you said, with James Harden. We'll have to see. We're also looking for another MVP. Steph Curry dislocated that middle finger on his left hand. What is he saying regarding his injury?
Well, obviously, it's not a strong hand. Obviously, he shoots more right-handed. But as you know, if you're a shooter, any kind of foreign object on your hand separating your flesh from the ball is a distraction, and it's an inconvenience. And Steph obviously had to wear that wrap, and he still does have it on, but he's kind of used to it by now. As a matter of fact, he said it's not going to be an issue. But the other thing about him in this series, he really hasn't put his stamp on this series. Obviously, you know Kevin Durant is going crazy, but we really haven't seen anything ballistic from Steph Curry. Does it happen tonight? We'll see. But I don't think it's going to be because of that wrap. He says he's used to it, and it's not going to be a problem.
Well, you use the term stamp on this series. Last year, Chris Paul's hamstring injury was the stamp on that series that everyone talked about in the offseason. Like, hey, if that didn't happen, could the Rockets have actually beaten the Warriors? Well, his production, not nearly what it was last year in last year's playoffs, averaging just 17-5 in this series. He turns 34 on Tuesday. Is this production what we should expect from him for the rest of this series?
Well, that would be a big problem for the Rockets because Harden obviously needs help in a way Chris Paul can help him in terms of reducing the ball handling chores and also the shooting chores. I talked with Chris Paul yesterday. He says he needs to be more aggressive in this series. His first game in the series, he only took 9 shots. The second game, he only took 14 shots, and he missed a big shot near the end. He feels he needs to be aggressive not only with the shot, but in terms of creating for his teammates and helping Harden out with the ball handling chores. Yeah, if you're Chris Paul, you're feeling a little, I guess, guilty right now because last year you couldn't help it when you pulled your hamstring. That was an act of the basketball gods. But this year, it's all on you. You're healthy. You didn't play like 82 games this season. You didn't have a big grind or anything like that. And you don't want to leave this series playing poorly because that really didn't, make up for last year, even though it wasn't your fault. But this year he's healthy. There are no excuses. So we'll see just in terms of how aggressive he's going to be tonight.
Going to be interesting to see if Father Time is actually catching up with Chris Paul. Okay, the Warriors relying on that Hampton 5 in this series. Each one of them started and scored at least 15 points in Game 2. Can they continue to succeed leaning so heavily on their starters with their lack of bench production?
Well, that's an interesting question. And I don't think it's as much offense as it is defense where they're really flourishing. If you look at, the way they're defending the Rockets pick and roll, and also the big boost that Andre Iguodala has given him, now that he's really playing like 33, 34 minutes and really in a very important role, much more important role than he was in regular season. Andre looks like he looks like he's 10 years younger out there right now. He's averaging 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He's disrupting the flow. He's rotating well, helping out on Harden, springing inside for lob dunks, hitting a three-point shot. So this is the playoff Andre. This is the guy they wanted when they gave him the contract extension. He's been dormant pretty much during the regular season since then. But if he's going to play like this, that's a big-time warning against anybody who's going to be on the other side of the Warriors this postseason.
Fountain of youth for Andre Iguodala. Let's see if Chris Paul can find the same. Sean, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so at first glance, James Harden putting up MVP numbers, right? You see the 32 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, status quo in this series. But then you look at the shooting percentages in this series, under 40% from the field, just over 30% from three-point range. Can the Rockets win this series if he's going to continue to shoot the ball like this? Do they need him to pick that up, Sam?
Well, you would like for him to shoot better, but it's the playoffs. And I'm telling you, when you're playing a team, for the 6th times, getting ready to play them for the 7th time, people know each other. So as a coach, you throw out the shooting percentages come to playoffs because you understand that both teams are well scouted. They're going to tighten their defense up. James Harden is a priority for every team, especially in this series. So you don't expect him to go out and shoot the unbelievable numbers that he shot during the regular season. That being said, you need to get him better quality looks. And what's going to get James Harden better looks? If his teammates start making shots, that's going to open things up. Because right now, Golden State is forcing the ball to where they want, and they're rotating late on some of the guys, and they're forcing some of the Houston Rockets players to take shots that they're probably not comfortable with.
Brian, do you agree with Sam?
I do. Another thing that's important for the Rockets, and with Harden specifically, is limiting turnovers. He's turning the ball over 5 times a game throughout his first 2 games. And Golden State is so potent offensively. As you guys know, they have 3 of the best shooters in NBA history, in Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant. So they're going to make shots, and they're going to make shots at a high rate, at an efficient clip. So for Houston, Harden has to be more efficient. And then I think another key for the Rockets is getting a 4th scorer involved. And what I mean by that is getting somebody involved beyond James Harden, Chris Paul, and Eric Gordon. Those 3 guys have been carrying a heavy load for the Rockets, but they really haven't had that 4th guy step up.
Brendan, sticking with the MVP convo, when we look at the shooting percentages, it's almost shocking to see Steph Curry shooting 26% from three-point range, under 40% from the field. So looking at him and getting back to status quo, do you think he's going to have a breakout game in this one and at some point in this series?
Well, knowing Steph Curry the way we all know Steph Curry up here, if he has a shooting slump, you know that he doesn't stay in shooting slumps long. That's why he's one of the best shooters that has ever picked up a basketball in NBA history. And I think tonight is the type of night where he can go out there and really get out of this slump. What's scary for the Houston Rockets is that Golden State has won these first 2 games without Steph playing to the level that we're used to seeing. We know sooner or later Steph's going to have one of those Steph type of games where he hits 4 or 5 threes in the quarter, starts going crazy, hitting threes, running down the court before they go into the basket. That's just who he is. That's in his DNA. He's that type of player. It's still in his prime. So I think Steph's going to have a great game tonight. If not tonight, it's going to be very soon. But I would bank on it being tonight, and especially now that he's had a couple of days to really get used to that hand injury. I know it's to the offhand, but still, when your hand's off a little bit, you got to wear a little bit of tape, and all those things come into play when you're shooting the basketball. Little things become big things. It's all about repetitions. Steph has had a lot of repetitions with that hand now. I look for him to play his best.
Sam, when we look at these 2 teams, the Golden State Warriors, the Houston Rockets, we think about 3-point shots. But it's actually the mid-range that's been the difference in this series. Kevin Durant lighting up Houston in that area. Houston has taken 43 shots in the mid-range, while the Rockets have only taken 8. How much of a factor do you think that is in this series with KD being so deadly there?
Well, it's a factor because, think about it, the closer you get to the basket, the better his shooting percentage is going to go up. And then when you look at Kevin Durant, at his size, and I'm going to say 6'11", he's more of a 7-footer. But think about what he does. When he takes that 1 or 2 hard dribbles to his right or left, and he pulls up for that 17-footer, he can shoot over anybody in the league. That's a shot that he knows that he can get at any time, at any point in the game. And give Steve Kerr credit. He's using that because, again, you got Klay Thompson, you got Steph Curry who can stand there and shoot the threes. But when you really need a basket, what Golden State has been doing, they've been putting the ball in Kevin Durant's hand, ISOing him, and letting him get to his sweet spots off the dribble. And once he pulls up at 7 foot, there's no one that can challenge that shot. The only guy you could potentially put on him is Capella. And when he does that, he just goes around Capella and gets to the basket and either drops him off or creates a pass or a shot for his teammates.
Brendan, when we're talking about the Golden State Warriors and we mentioned Steph's struggles from the field and there's Kevin Durant to the rescue. For Houston last year, it was Chris Paul that provided that. He'll be 34 again on Tuesday. Does he still have what it takes to carry this team in stretches when James Harden can't?
It's tough to say that. And it's only because the regular season isn't the same season as the postseason, but it preps you for it to a certain degree. And Houston has gotten used to playing a certain way, and it's a different style than it was last year. Last year, it was Chris Paul was 1B to James Harden's 1A. This year, James Harden is A, B, and C. And I think with the age, Father Times comes for everybody. I think it's slowly but surely started to take a toll on Chris. He's not quite as quick as he used to be. The three-point percentage for a guy that's his game's been based on efficiency, Chris is shooting 20% from 3 in these playoffs. So I think that's a major struggle. And I'm not sure if Chris can really be the same Chris that we're used to seeing. I'm not sure if it's going to go there. And Sam, you had a great point talking about Kevin Durant in the mid-range. I think if Houston's going to get back into it, it's going to be because they totally unleash, not Chris Paul, but James Harden, and let him do some of the stuff that he can do in the mid-range of post. Just unleash his full game. Right now, James Harden is only using a small percentage of his game. That's why he becomes so much easier to guard. And I think now that Chris Paul isn't the same, you have to use more of James Harden, use more of his skills.
Brendan, just remember now, when they signed Chris Paul, what did they talk about? What he brought different? Not the three-point shooting, but the mid-range game. That was something that was a lot of talk about. Can Mike D'Antoni incorporate Chris Paul's game? Because Chris Paul is a deadly mid-range shooter. And that was the big talk. Yeah, he can extend his shot and he can shoot threes, but what Chris Paul really kill you is when he gets in the paint and gets that 17-foot range and pull up or make those passes. And I think for James Harden and Chris Paul, they got to do that because Golden State is trying to run them off that, especially Harden, off that three-point line. Take the two, and that's the difference that I see between Golden State and a lot of other teams. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Durant will take the two. They're going to take the easy two if you give it to them, whereas some of these other teams, they're going to take a step back, fadeaway three. They're going to do whatever they have to do to get a three off, whereas those other three guys, they just going to take the easy two and live with it.
You want to know the difference? Golden State is playing basketball. They're reacting to the defense. When you do something, they have a counter reaction. And they say, okay, you take them with a three, we'll go to two. Houston's playing analytics.
Yep.
We're saying, well, if we take this amount of threes and we hit this amount, now the game isn't about just analytics. It has to be a mix of basketball common sense and analytics. Houston is forgetting this part of it.
I do know this. 3 is more than 2, and 2 is more than 0. I know that much.
Well, one thing
you got to be a math major with that type of stuff right there.
You know what? We've worked late nights with this guy, and sometimes Sam can be the guy that complains about overtime. You know what I mean?
I love
CJ McCollum, he's not that guy. After a quadruple overtime win, he said, I love it. This is what I live for. That's up next on Game Time.